Good evening, folks. Apologies for being late with the issues in the last half hour. We're internet or video or everything, but we're here. Better late than never. So we have Jennifer from our American team who's over there. And we get Sarah and Laura. And joining us tonight again is the owner of Top Hat Tours, Mr Simon Entwistle. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Samlesbury Witches. And so without further ado, I'll give the floor to Simon and he tells all about the Samlesbury Witches.
Thank you very much indeed, Scott. The Samlesbury Witches were all arrested at exactly the same time as the Pendle Witches. The only window we have in this whole story is a book written in 1613 by Thomas Potts called The Wonderful Discovery of Witches in Lancashire. The Samlesbury Hall Witches consist of Jane Southworth and Jean and Ellen Brearley. The testimony against them came from a little girl, very, very similar to the Pendle Witch trials. She was called Gracie Sarbuts. The Pendle Witches were brought into the courts in August 1612 at exactly the same time as the other accused. Little Grace was put on top of her desk so the jury could see her. And the senior judge, Mr. James Oldham, said, "Right, young lady, read out your testimony against these three witches." "I will, sir. I was walking along the banks of the River Ribble. I saw Jane Southworth and the two Brearley sisters from Samlesbury Hall. They were swimming in the river. It was actually a very, very hot summer's day. I then saw these unusual dogs. I have never seen the dogs before. Long backs, cloven hooves, white teeth and glowing eyes. They jumped into the river, materialized into human beings, and picked up all three women. They danced in a circle. They paired off for a meal. I then watched from a distance as fraternization was taking place with these demonic spectres. The second day, Ellen Brearley came to see me. She changed from a woman into a dog, and she tried to suffocate me under a blanket of straw, but I escaped. On the third day, I was approached by Jane Southworth and the two Brearley sisters, and they said, 'Would you like to have a bit of fun?' I said, 'Fun? What fun?' 'A little boy called Thomas Walshman has been born at Samlesbury Hall.' 'So? He hasn't been christened. We'd like to drink his blood.' 'No,' said Gracie. 'No, I don't want to get involved in that.' James Oldham was about to pick up the gavel and find them guilty when his companion, Edmund Bromley, said, No. Let her finish her testimony.' 'Sir, in the dead of night, Jane Southworth and Jeanette and Ellen Brearley made their way to Samlesbury Hall. They made their way to the long gallery where the little boy, Thomas Walsh, was sleeping. Over 4 nights, they picked him from his cot, pricked his stomach, and they consumed his blood. He was then interned and passed away and was interned at Samlesbury Church. In the early hours of the morning, sir, they came back. They dug up the coffin. They took the baby from the coffin. They boiled the baby's flesh and kept some body ointments that would enable them to change shape. That was it. This time the senior judge, Oldham, picked up the gavel. 'We find you guilty. You will die like the rest this morning.' Before the gavel came down, Jane Southworth pulled off a short miracle. 'Sir, I beg of you, sir, to cross-examine this young girl, sir. She's been manipulated by a Catholic priest hiding at Samlesbury Hall called Thompson.' Just that one word, Catholicism, made the judges sit back. 'You're an Anglican, you say?' 'I am, sir. I'm married into the Southworth family, sir. They don't like me, sir, because my Anglican views, sir. They're Catholics. This young girl has been manipulated by a Catholic priest to incriminate myself and my two friends, the Brearley sisters, sir. Please cross-examine your witness, sir.' Well, the court stood back. They were quite shocked when they heard the word Catholicism. James Oldham, Edmund Bromley, Thomas Potts, Roger Noel, William Holden, and Nicholas Bannister, the prosecution, took young Grace next door. The three girls waited. Jane Southworth, Jean and Ellen Brearley. Would they live, or would they join the Pendle Witches? After what seemed An eternity, the court was reassembled. Jane waited with bated breath with her two companions. James Altham stood up. In the light of new evidence, we find you, Jane Southworth, you, Jean and Ellen Braley, innocent of the crimes against you. You're free to go. The three of them hugged each other. They jumped for joy. They couldn't believe that they'd been acquitted. As they left Lancaster City Castle, Sir Richard Southworth came from Samlesbury Hall to pick them up and take them home. Jane turned and looked up at the pillory at Lancaster. There she could clearly see the Pendle Witches blowing and hanging in the wind. At the end of the pillory, she noted 3 empty nooses, and she realised that she had not only saved her life, but the lives of her 2 best friends. They made their way back to Samlesbury Hall and had the party of all parties to celebrate their freedom. But the story doesn't really end there. For many, many centuries, historians have argued between the Pendle Witches and the Samlesbury Hall Witches. We do know from Thomas Potts's book that they were tried at exactly the same time, under exactly the same prosecution and exactly the same jury. So we only have Potts's book to rely on, really. But 200 years later, 2 local doctors, Dr. Whittaker and Dr. Dawson, met in a beautiful little public house in the village of Worley near Clitheroe, around a glowing fire. They had 2 glasses of punch each, and they discussed the Pendle Witch story. Then they discussed the Samlesbury Hall Witch story. And Whittaker said to Dawson, I believe young Grace was telling the truth. How? Said his companion. Well, the way she's described those 3 dogs in the River Ribble sound very like the dogs belonging to Demdike, Chattocks and Redfern, Fancy, Tib and Ball. And remember, she would not have been in court that day, so she would have no way of being able to identify them. Also, let's get permission from the Church of England to exhume the Walshman grave. They wrote to York Minster, and the Reverend John Franks was dispatched from York Minster to Samlesbury Church. There he met the 2 doctors. He got the grave records from the church, and under Church of England supervision, he paced out the exact location of the Walshman grave. Whittaker and Dawson started to dig. Just 2 feet beneath the surface, they found a lozenge-shaped 1612 Charles coffin, almost shaped like a lozenge, but with metal bars over it. Under Church of England supervision, it was opened and found to contain nothing. Who knows? Young Gracie Sarbuts may just have been telling the truth. We shall never, ever know. But I do know that Jane and the 2 Braley sisters were very, very fortunate to escape with their lives that day in August 1612. And there we have the Samlesbury Hall Witches.
Thank you, Simon. We cut out a couple of seconds there for some reason. The internet is playing fun and games with us. So, as they were tried the exact same time as we're having the 3 nooses hanging empty. Obviously, everybody expected the same kind of outcome, as the Pendle Witches.
Yes.
Do you think that obviously with these 2 doctors talking a couple of 100 years down the line and then digging up the grave, do you think that maybe on that day in August 1612 that 10 innocent people were hanged and 3 guilty away?
I'm sorry, Scott, I didn't quite get the whole gist of the question there. I'm sorry.
Do you think that maybe, obviously with them finding the baby's grave empty, the coffin empty, do you think that maybe on that day in August that 10 innocent people were unjustly hanged and 3 guilty ones got away with it?
It's very, very hard to say, Scott. As I say, we only have Thomas Potts's book as the only window into this whole story, really. When you look at the situation, we have King James I of England, who's absolutely paranoid about witchcraft. We have a local magistrate who knows this and the East Lancashire area to this very, very day is still predominantly Catholic. The king hated the Catholics with a vengeance and gave orders for all of his magistrates to watch out for illegal Catholic gatherings. So caught up in all this paranoia and hysteria were the Pendle Witches. In the case of Demdike and Chattox, they were very, very elderly women. And many historians believe that they may have survived for so long because they knew all about plants. And of course, all modern medicines do come from plants. We believe they were over 85 years old, which is quite unusual because apparently life expectancy will be 35 if you're lucky. Do I think they were witches, Scott? My personal feeling is they weren't. I think they were just common peasants who were living there at the wrong time. And I believe that Demdike and Chattox made these herbal remedies and sold them. And of course, you've heard the expression, an old wives' tale. I believe that John Law, the Halifax peddler, probably had a stroke. And in those days, of course, it would be classed as witchcraft. But we only have Potts's book to go on, really. And it does seem to be very, very biased towards women, really. In 1612, women were not permitted, for instance, to sit in juries or indeed be a prosecutor. They were treated very much as second-class citizens, really.
Wait.
Gordon, you're muted.
Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can, Scott, yes.
Because our monitor just totally cut out. We've got a blank monitor.
That's your phone.
Bear with us, folks. I think tonight, I don't know, something's working on us. I don't know what's going on. That he's back again. I don't know, the screen just disappeared, the whole thing just switched off. So I've lost what I forgot what I was going to say. Of course, the Pendle trial, Samlesbury trials, and the Salem trials are all very, very similar.
Very similar, Scott. Very similar.
We cover, obviously, Simon, you've done it with yourself as well. Last year we covered, the witch.
Yes.
We couldn't talk about every single witch trial. This screen's off again.
So you dropped it.
If the screen keeps cutting out, we've got nothing here. This is a first for us. So, can you still see us?
I don't know that you can see us either, at the moment. No, that's totally good. Right.
We get nothing.
Nothing. Oh, wait. I can hear Jennifer. Hi.
Jennifer, can you hear us?
I can hear Jennifer.
I can hear you quite clearly. I can see you quite clearly. But yeah, the tales of those witches. I've heard of them, and I'm very familiar with the Pendle Witches and the Demdike. I have the book of the Pendle Witches. I love it. I adore it. My dad gave it to me, and he said, "I don't know if you're going to understand the language." I said, "Just give me the damn book."
Yes.
It's Old English, and I love Old English, and I love the betrayal of them. But to hear the Salisbury, it's like it's you have to wonder how much, even in for Salem, how much of these witch trials are repetitive of each other because of what they've heard, what they've seen, what they've done, or what the superstitions of the time. Okay, that's funny.
Of course.
He's calling me on my phone.
Yeah. This has got to be the curse of the Pendle Witches.
So there's Scott, you guys, on my phone because he's calling me. Hi. They said that they've lost everything on their end. The whole thing's gone? And the live's still going? Okay. Hold on. Let me. I can. I don't know if you can hear him, but okay. Is the guy back on? Is it back on?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, folks. Technical difficulties.
Oh my god. No, Scott brought the monitor a couple of weeks ago. He smashed the stand on it. So it's
I promise I didn't do any witchcraft before this show. I promise. It's all over there. It's not even near me.
I think I'm best to end it. And Simon, can we reschedule you, buddy?
I'm sorry, Scott. Could you repeat, please?
I said, I think we're going to wrap this one up, and can we reschedule with you to do it again?
I'm sure we can, Scott. It's obviously a technical difficulty. I'm sure we can do.
I don't know what the hell. We've lost the light as well. I don't know what's going on at all. But all I can do is apologise to yourself, Simon. I know you've taken time out tonight to come on for us.
It's not your fault, Scott. Don't worry. It's not your fault at all. It's good old technology, which is a nuisance, isn't it, really?
Yep. Jennifer, we'll try and video call you. All right. So you hang fire. I'll drop you a couple of dates, Simon.
Okay, Scott. Thank you.
We'll get it crashed out, but I do apologise again, buddy.
No, it's not your fault, Scott. It's not your fault at all, Scott. Don't worry.
So thank you for your patience and understanding. It's much appreciated.
Okay.
We're going to end the live because we really don't know what's going on. We're just having all sorts of problems for the past.
Yeah.
And rather than keep popping in and out and making a mishmash, we'd rather reschedule it and do it properly.
Okay, Scott.
You know, the accused that have been involved by 1612 as well. I think it's a story that needs to be done with respect and do it properly. So we will reschedule this very, very soon. We'll put a post on the page. So apologies again, folks, and we'll see you soon. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
bye.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Cheers.